This webinar is by Design Buddies, Adobe XD, and General Assembly. And my name is Gabriela, and I lead the West Coast expansion for General Assembly. What is actually GA? We are a technology education company. We started 10 years ago in New York, and now we are in 40 plus locations all around the world. We are all around the US, in Toronto, for instance, Sydney, Melbourne, Singapore, London, Paris. You can even Saudi Arabia, actually. So you can really join us everywhere. And thanks to Zoom, literally everywhere, even from your dream vacation. We are focusing on teaching people skills as coding, user experience design, visual design, data, marketing, business, and career development. And how we actually do it. If you want to fully change your careers, we have 3 months long boot camps where you can sign up. There are tons of scholarships, financing options. And during 3 months, you can become, for instance, user experience designer. And you will also have career coaching. And after the program, you will land an entry-level job in the new era. So that means you will be a junior user experience designer. We have same programs about software engineering and also about data science. On top of this, if you feel like you need to refresh your skills or you want to upskill, we have part-time programs that are 10 weeks long, 2 times per week in the evening or every Saturday. For instance, about user experience design again, or about visual design, various coding languages, we have product management and more. And on top of all these, we have tons of short workshops and webinars, just like this one. You can find some of our webinars here. So I picked a couple of topics for you. Oops. Intro to wireframing is something that we are organizing with Women Who Code Sacramento, and it will be on August 30. One other webinar, or like virtual conference, will be in September 13 till 17. And it will be 5 days full of free workshops about career, personal branding, how to leverage LinkedIn, tons of networking sessions and more. Everything fully free, everything fully virtual with all these amazing speakers. And there are tons of our workshops that you can find on our website, ga.co/education. Also, all the webinars that I mentioned and programs are on ga.co. For instance, you can join us for free workshops like Intro to UX, Intro to User Research, a day in the life of user experience designer, and more. Keynote is not collaborating with me, but here's the website. So for all RSVP, more webinars, go to ga.co/education and join us. And now, Grace, would you mind to share a couple of words about Design Buddies?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for partnering with us on this. I'm going to share my screen. Welcome, General Assembly Buddies. If this is your first time hearing about Design Buddies, we are a really inclusive design community where you really anyone interested in design. Doesn't matter where you're coming from, if you're career transitioning, a student learning design, we have a lot of programs like this and resources and fun design challenges meant for you as well. We have lots of online workshops, mentoring programs, lots of virtual meetups to help y'all level up your portfolio and resume. And what you see here is in my background, it's just my connection's unstable, is our mascot Fuffle. Fuffle is our little guardian bunny to support y'all as a hero of your own design journey. And full-time, I am a product designer at Electronic Arts based in SF Bay area. I run Design Buddies as my very fun, big, huge side hustle. So you're welcome to join us on Discord or visit our website, designbuddies.community to learn more. And throughout this webinar, I will be posting a lot of my takeaways on our Instagram stories at design.buddies. And if y'all find out or y'all like kind of resonate with anything from this webinar, definitely post it on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, tag Kavita, tag General Assembly, tag Design Buddies. We'd love to retweet and share, reshare on our stories as well. And throughout this event, we'll also have a networking sheet where y'all can drop your information on the chat to connect with each other and send each other personalized invites saying y'all met at this webinar. So on to you, Kavita.
Well, thank you, Grace. Hi, everybody, and welcome. Super excited to be here today to share with you a few tips and tricks to get business savvy as a UX designer. I'm not going to spend much time about me. I already mentioned that, but I have been in the UX field for many decades. And one of the things that I totally enjoyed during my career was really connecting the designs that we created or design solutions to business. I totally love it. I enjoy it. I love numbers. I'm that nerdy number person that loves to connect revenue with designs. And right now I am principal at an innovation consulting firm called Moves the Needle, where we help large organizations adopt customer-centric innovation. So without further ado, just a few things I wanted to share. This is going to, what I have for you today is not a lot of front of the room talking, but I've made an attempt to make sure that I am not only sharing some guiding principles, but examples, and then we have some hands-on exercises. The hope here is that you will get to practice things a little bit and walk away with things that you can apply and are actionable starting tomorrow. And to that end, since we are on Zoom, the way it will work is that we will use chat as a way for both Q&A and when I have questions, please drop your responses in chat. I may or may not be able to see all of them because I'll be sharing my screen, but Gabriella has been very gracious to monitor and she will pass them on to me. So, and I will try to answer them. So if I don't, please don't take it personally. It's just that I'm not able to view the stuff in chat once I start sharing my screen. So without further ado, let me start sharing my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen.
We can see.
Okay, perfect. All right. So what does becoming a business savvy designer mean and why is it important? This is more for context. I'm sure I'm not sharing anything you all don't know, but I want to just establish the context for why business savvy is important. And that doesn't mean you have to become a business person, but there are some tips and tricks and some basic understanding of business that will help you drive impact both in your organization and if you're a consultant with your clients. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are consulting and how many of you work in organizations? If you can drop that in chat, it'll give us a good idea. I have done my best to focus my examples that will speak to both if you are a consultant or if you are working in a small, medium or large organization. These tips and learnings hold true and will help you. So going back to, I don't know, most of you have seen this. Survey was conducted many years back by the Design Management Institute, but it basically says that design-centric companies outperform the S&P index by 219%. So, which is great news for us. And more recently, McKinsey conducted a survey and a study and did some research where they learned that the top, quartile McKinsey Design Index scores were for companies that outperformed the benchmark by 2 to 1. So companies that were high on their design index, which is a combination of 4 different things that they use to measure how design savvy an organization is. Those companies that ranked high on the index outperformed their competitors in the same industry by 2 to 1. So that's great too. And yet we know about 90% of organizations are not maximizing the full potential of design. Again, the same survey also found that 90% of CEOs don't regularly involve design leaders in strategy development. And that's something I'm sure you all have experienced too, because it's very often you're told, hey, we need this design it like this and just give it to us. And that's where you become a very tactical player. And the flip side to that is that fewer than half of design leaders feel that their leaders or CEOs fully understand their role or the role of design. How many of you have felt this way at some point or the other? Yes, I'm sure you have. And I remember starting out in my career and feeling the same way too. Sometimes we, it was like, oh, they just don't understand design, or I just can't be creative, or, or they don't really want to solve for the customer. They're only thinking about the business. While all of those are, natural and true, there are some things that you need to do and we can do to, one, understand why we feel this way and why business leaders or business peers behave this way. And that will allow us to drive impact. So what I'm going to share with you today are 4 steps to embrace a business-centric mindset without compromising customer first values. And the reason I say that is I know we all as designers feel like, okay, we are the customer advocates and business is just not thinking about the customer. It's all about revenue. It's all about money. It's all about sale. That is true, but that's their way of thinking. That's their perspective. And we are the ones who come at it from the customer's perspective. That said, how many of you know of any products that customers don't like and don't buy that make money? None, right? So those two, being business centric and customer first, are very synonymous. If you are creating value for your customer, you are generating revenue for the business. It's just that they have a different way of thinking about it. So the 4 steps are empathy. Empathy will help you think strategically, and I will talk about it in terms of what I mean by that. Collaborate. It allows you to gain trust. It's if you collaborate with your business peers and leaders, you gain their trust. You open the door and they open the door, and you build trust, and you will be able to do things that are bold and creative. Then the third thing is measuring, and this is super critical. You can do great work, but if you're not able to communicate, to measure and the impact of your design, you're not going to be appreciated for the work. You're not going to have any influence. And then just measuring is not enough. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to communicate in a way that people understand that the impact your work has. And a business person understands what? Numbers, right? Or how much, or how many customers they acquired. They don't understand the layout. They don't understand flow. All they care about is, did the design have the desired impact to deliver on the revenue? And that doesn't mean that you have to learn business. There are some key things that you need to learn to be able to drive that impact. So let's get into empathy. So just before I dive deeper, what the definition of empathy is what? It is about perspective taking, staying out of judgment, recognizing the emotion in another person, and communicating the understanding of another person's emotions. And the question I pose is that, why empathy, right? It allows, in the business context, it allows you to create and connect the impact of your design to business goals and strategy. And so, for example, the business strategy is increase sales or conversion, right? And so there's just 3 things that you need to learn about business strategy. You can whittle that down into 3 things, and you will hear these words all the time, right? We need to increase sales. We need to increase conversion, and conversion can be acquiring new customers or retaining current customers. And the other one is we need to grow into new markets, right? And so all of those are strategy questions. And I'll give you an example. When I was working for a tax preparation software. The strategy was acquire new customers. Great. The question, so how would you do that? They're like, oh, create a better first use experience. What that meant was that when customers attempt to use the application for the first time, it needed to be a great experience. So all that the design team focused on was creating a great experience for registration. And that really helped them acquire new customers. The number of new customers they acquired that year increased by 10%, which was really big for this company. And the same thing is when you are solving for retention, you want your customers to come back or you want your customers to stay. So what you want to do then is you want to focus on what are some of the things that will make customers stay. And that means that you want to save their information, you want to automate tasks, things like that. And then the third one is new markets. That's where you get to explore and create new solutions for customers that are not currently in the same segment as your market. So for example, I was working for a healthcare company which was a market leader for a certain type of autoimmune disorder. And they realized very quickly that there was no more space to grow because it was a saturated market. And so they decided to move into a different segment, which is people with a related autoimmune disorder. So what I'm trying to say here is that you will hear business strategy, it's a big word, but if you sort of whittle it down, it's about three things: sales and conversion. And if you can then do a click down, it'll help you understand and narrow down what you need to do. And the third thing about business strategy is also reducing cost, which typically tends to be how do you cut down customer service calls. So those are things that you need to sort of ask and understand. And how do you do that? When a project kicks off, pose these 5 questions. What is the goal? How does the goal align with business strategy? Who is the target customer? What does success look like for this project? And what are the business metrics? And I'm going to share an example with you to bring this to life. And this is a real example. I was working with a company that creates practice management software for law firms. And when these questions were posed, the answers I got were, what is the goal? Become the market leader in payment processing, 100% CAGR over 2 years. And CAGR is compounded annual growth rate. How does the goal align with business strategy? Increase the number of transactions per customer and increase acquisition. Who is the target customer? Mid-sized law firms that accept online payments. What does success look like for this project? We are the sole payment processing solution for our customers. What are the business metrics? Increase credit card payments by 200% and revenue by 100%. Okay, I'm going to pause. I'm sure your head is spinning, right? You're like, oh, that's a lot of terms and a lot of words and everything. So now what? Okay, how do you use this information? So here's some simple things. I know it's overwhelming when you hear all that. You need to sort of focus in on what are the actionable bits. And so here, the actionable bit is what's the business strategy? It is increasing the number of transactions per customer and increase customers, because this law firm wanted to make it convenient. This company wanted to make it convenient for law firms to accept credit card payments from their clients. And so you want to focus on the credit card payment design and experience. And so you want to just think about how does that align with business strategy, right? So you need to increase the number of credit card transactions, which will in turn increase customers. And then how will you measure that? You increase credit card payments by 200% and revenue by 100%, which means if you have 100 customers today, right, or you are processing 100 payments per month, you need to process 200 credit card payments per month. If you are making $10,000, you need to make 20,000. So that's the way. I'm sorry, if you make 200% would be, 400 transactions. So, all right. Any questions? Okay.
No, we don't have any questions.
Okay. And so, then, so this is how it ladders up. So what do you do? So your design focus is three things, right? Because they were going back to the strategy. It was, they wanted to acquire new customers and they wanted to increase credit card payments. So you want to make it for, what do new customers need? They want to be easily onboarded. They want it to be super simple to set up the solution, set up their credit payment processing. And they want to be able to process credit card payments. So the team focused on just these three things. They could have done so many other things, but they decided we will only focus on these three things to drive impact. And how did that align with strategy? By doing these three things, it would lead to an increase in the number of transactions per customer and increase customers. Increasing customers by onboarding and great first use experience, and the ease of credit card processing payments would increase transactions. And that would in turn lead to a 200% increase in payments. So from 100 to 200 and from revenue 100%, right? And that would ladder up to the goal or success criteria, because if you make it simple and easy to process credit cards, you are the sole payment processing solution for your customers. And so I think what empathy and understanding allows you to do, it allows you to focus to help execute on strategy and achieve goals, because it allows you to frame your designs in the context of your company's strategy. And it also helps your stakeholders make sense of your work. So that, when you walk into a room and you say, okay, we really believe that this will work because our customers will like it, and your leader will go, so what? But if you walk in and go, we really believe that customers will be able to process credit card payments easily, they will love it, and it will lead to an increase in credit card payments and revenue. And you immediately have your leaders or your clients' attention. The second thing, so let's take about 10 minutes, and we can figure out how you all get done. I'd like you to select a current or past project and write down the answers to the following questions, which are the same ones that I addressed on the previous slide. Pick any project and write down what is the goal, how does the goal align with business strategy, who was the target customer, what does success look like for this project, and what are the business metrics. Let's take about 10 minutes to do that. And I'm going to time you. as you get done, if you could just drop a note in chat saying you're done, it'll help me understand where everyone is at. Thank you. Gabriella, how are we doing? Are people done?
Yes, we have many people done.
Okay.
So I would say around 10 people already wrote that they are done.
Okay. Let's give a few more minutes and then let's sort of go into chat and have a little discussion. You have about 2 more minutes. All right, I think we'll pause now, and if you guys aren't done, you can continue with it after. But this is the intent here was to give you sort of a checklist that you can use going forward. I do want to find out, and please put your answers in chat. How did you do? And by that, I mean, how many questions you were able to answer confidently and you felt you had the answers? Was anyone able to get answers to all the 5 for a project? Gabriella, I will need your help.
Yes, so we have some answers here. So for instance, John, I felt like I couldn't come up with different answer for question 1 and 4, especially for a smaller project. If you wanna, we can unmute John. John, do you wanna share more? Let me know in Zoom chat and I can unmute you and you can even share more. Or if anyone wanna get unmuted and share more, feel free to let me know and we can bring you on stage. Other answers we have from Alice. I answer all except the business metrics. Hard to write about exactly what the business needed. We have a couple of people who were answered yes or no. Lei, she answered that 1, 2, and 3 were solid, 4 and 5 less.
I think that's great. So I think a couple of things. These are questions that we need to ask when a project is kicked off, right? Or when I say kicked off, when it's sort of you hear, okay, this is the project you're going to be working on. And so go ahead, Gabriella.
I just wanted to step in. There were a couple of comments about business metrics that mostly it seems like people are struggling to answer the 5th question about business metrics.
Awesome. And we'll talk about that. That's what the measure part is. And that is the toughest thing, but we realize that that is the most critical one because that is the one that allows you to very clearly tie or connect your design to the measurements that the business is placing on assessing whether they were able to successfully achieve their goal and deliver results, right? And so the business metrics, again, you will, and going back to the example I had, and let me just sort of go back to it. Here, right? The business metric here was increased credit card payments by 200% and revenue by 100%. So 100% increase is, for 100 is 200, right? And a 200% increase for 100 is 300. And what they will measure at the end of the day, you create a design solution and your leaders or your clients are looking to see if your design solution enabled their customers to be able to easily make credit card payments, and hence the credit card payments increased by 200%. So I think so there's 2 parts to it. So that allows you to identify what you need to focus on, because there's just so many things you can focus on, even when you are designing a solution for processing payments. But you need to focus on how the business is measured and what the business is measuring success with. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to drive impact. You don't want to design for a screen or an experience that's, that may allow for people to make ACH payments. I'm just making this up, right? Because that's not the goal here. You want to design for making sure that your credit card processing payment experience is delightful and simple. And that's why it's super critical to understand or learn. When I say understand, it's about asking what the business metrics are, because every project has business metrics, and that allows you to connect what you did, your designs, and the impact they had on delivering successful outcomes by measuring it, which is what business people love. Does that make sense? And then going back to, I think, was it Joanne or somebody who asked about 1 and 4 being similar? Yes, they are kind of similar. And the trick here is sometimes you ask things in different ways and you will get different answers. And so those things are gold mines because it helps you understand really the breadth of thinking that the business person has, so that you know what you can and cannot do. All right, so let's move to the next one. Now, this one is about walking in their shoes. And the question I pose is, we are good at walking in our customers' shoes because that's what we do. So we can definitely empathize with our business peers and leaders. This goes back to the earlier statement I shared about, I feel like my leaders don't understand me, they don't understand design. Yeah, that may well be. I think we owe it to ourselves and them to understand them also in terms of where they're coming from and what they're looking for, right? Because that allows you to share effectively, sort of tap into what's important to them and share your solution and your outcomes accordingly. So I'm going to leave you with a bonus. And you don't have to do this today, but I would highly recommend that you identify a leader you work with closely and schedule time with them to understand their journey. And I know it's hard. Sometimes you're like, well, I am 5 levels removed from a leader. How do I do that? Or my client, as when I work with my client, I have no access to leaders. So a couple of tips and tricks for that. One is if you're working in-house, I have always felt that all you have to do is ask. Most leaders are very happy to meet with you for 5-10 minutes. Otherwise, when you sort of run into them in the elevator and stuff, instead of sharing what you're doing, maybe ask them these questions, right? And it's very enlightening and insightful when you ask that. For example, I remember I talked to one of the leaders I used to work for about their journey. And what they shared with me was that when they were in high school, they were told that they would amount to nothing. And so they took that as a challenge and they said, I will prove you wrong. And they always took a lot of risks. And that sort of was how they embraced it, and that was their leadership style. So when you worked for them, they allowed you to go bold, you could take risks, right? So I think that allowed all of us to really come up with designs that were out there and we could take risks and go bold. So and if you're a consultant, one of the ways to work around getting access is into your proposal, bake in these stakeholder interviews. Say I want a 30-minute or a 15-minute interview with your 2 leaders. So that helps you understand what the leaders are looking for, what design means to them, how they feel design can contribute to their goals and business success. So let's move on to the next one, which is collaborate. And why collaboration? I know you're wondering why collaboration, what does it have to do with being business savvy? And I think one of the things that I want to share with you is it's not about just learning and reading about business terminology and how, business goals. You have to sort of immerse yourself somewhat and understand, because that truly allows you to pick and choose what you want to focus on, what business aspects you want to use to truly drive impact. Both by driving impact, I mean drive impact by your, through your designs, and also elevate the level of design, the influence that design can have in the organization. And so when you collaborate, what that means is with people on your teams, when a project gets kicked off, what you need to do is you get commitment on the goal. right? And by that, I mean, how many of you have walked into a room where the goal is shown up on, on a slide or during a presentation, and people start breaking it apart because they're like, we don't agree, or we agree, or we disagree. We like this part, we don't like this part. So there, it starts a discussion, and you very quickly realize that people are not committed to it. And so it is before you, and what that happens then is that if people are not committed to it, um, they're going to break your designs apart, right? Because they are all looking for different things. And so my goal is to increase sales. The other person's, one business person's goal is to increase sales. The other business person goes, no, I just want to cut down on customer calls. And if they're not committed, those two are very different design solutions. And if they're not committed, you are going to get caught in between. So that's why it's super important to get commitment on the goal. Confirm the customer and the problem. We talked about, okay, earlier asking who is the customer and what's the problem. You need to still confirm. Don't take anything for granted. And brainstorm and document key assumptions and metrics. I always say that if you don't make a note, it doesn't exist. So always document. And the other thing is brainstorm. Include your business stakeholders in any kind of brainstorming. The reason is, one, everyone has great ideas. As a designer, your superpower is bringing them to life, but that doesn't mean that others don't have great ideas. The other thing is that sometimes people have great ideas, and once you include them in a brainstorm, very quickly they realize that what they thought was a good idea may not be a good idea, because they start thinking it through and they realize it's not a good idea. So it allows you to just whittle down the good ones to the critical few. And of course, last but not least, ensure that your design will help validate assumptions. Once you've identified the assumptions, you want to make sure that your design validates those assumptions. And so here is an example of a tool that allows people to select and identify the next vehicle that they're looking for. So this is a real case study where the business challenge, and it was stated exactly like this, was increase qualified leads to car dealerships. And the solution, the proposed solution, was an online tool that helps people in the market for a new car decide on the vehicle and availability based on their needs. The reason for that was that, at least in the United States, we hate going to car dealerships. I know I hate it. I am pretty sure unless you're buying a Tesla, anywhere else is painful. And so people really find it painful to go to car dealerships and negotiate. And so that's the pain it was addressing. But the business challenge was also that dealers wanted the business to send qualified car buyers. So there's an inherent conflict here. And so when the team got together, what they asked the same question. So get commitment on the goal. And it was increase qualified leads to new car dealers by 2%. Confirm the customer and the problem. New car shoppers, who are the customers who find shopping for cars overwhelming and do not like to visit car dealerships. So that's the problem. So what was so you have the customer, you have the problem, and then you start brainstorming what are the key assumptions and the metrics, right? The problem is that if I am a new car customer, I'm completely overwhelmed because I have certain needs, but I do not know what vehicles will meet my needs. For example, if I have kids that I take to different sporting events, or sporting activities, I need to make sure I have a certain size trunk and enough room to be able to accommodate all the sporting equipment. And I go off-roading, so I want to make sure that my vehicle is capable of off-roading. Now, there are so many vehicles. How do you decide? And you don't want to visit dealerships. So providing new car shoppers with the top 3 make and models was the availability based on their needs, that they visit no more than 3 dealerships, because that was the thing. And so the solution was, the metrics for the solution were that people saved 3 vehicles and and reach out to 2 dealerships. I'm sorry, there's a typo there. So once the team agreed upon that, what are the next steps? What you need to do is then you kind of look at, what do we know? You want to look at the competitive landscape, and don't be afraid to ask your business peers for any and all data. You may understand some, you may not understand some of it, and that's okay, because any and all data helps you get a good, well-rounded view of the data you have and the solution you can create. And then when you start talking to customers, and that this is something that not all organizations have a researcher. So as a designer, you are more than capable of conducting customer interviews. Invite your business peers to participate. Just this morning, one of my clients was saying that the designers and the researchers on their teams don't like to include product people because they feel like product people should not be doing research or talking to customers. And my suggestion is, in the spirit of opening up the black box or inviting people in, you should include them. And what that allows you to do is that once you include them, you get buy-in from them on your ideas and solutions, because they've seen firsthand the pain a customer feels. And the same thing with brainstorming, which I mentioned earlier. And last but not least, evidence is your friend. So get customer feedback on solutions. It can be as simple as just showing customers your solution and asking them to react to it, if you don't have the option of tools like user testing or a place where you can do any kind of research. Right. So let's do a quick exercise, and let's take about 5 minutes for this one. And these are the same questions. So what I'd like you to do is select a current or past project and write down. More importantly, did you get commitment on the goal? Was there commitment and alignment on who the customer was or who the customers were and the problem? Did you guys brainstorm assumptions, and did you identify the metrics? Who were the competitors? And did you invite and engage with your business partners to brainstorm solutions? And how did your design help validate or invalidate assumptions?
Okay, Kavita, we actually have a couple of questions. So maybe, for instance, you can stop sharing screen for a little bit to see the Zoom chat, or you don't want, because they're kind of long. So maybe it's better that you see.
Yeah, let me do that. Let me stop sharing.
And also, before we will switch to full Q&A, we will do a group picture.
Okay, hang on. I'm having issues. My toolbar has disappeared. Okay. All right. All right. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, where do I start? Where are the questions? There's lots of questions here. Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, so David, is that the one? So as a US, okay. Yeah, Maggie answered that. So I'm going to sort of. So you guys, whether it's product, so I'm going to sort of just put a bow on this. Looks like there's been some discussion in terms of product design, UX design. It doesn't matter what designer you are. At the end of the day, our job as designers is to create value for the customer. And how do we communicate that we are able to drive impact by creating value for the customer? We are able to drive impact for the business. You need to understand how you will drive how your designs will drive impact for the business. And so to be able to do that, you need to understand the business aspects. So, it's sort of, it's really simple. No, we've never heard of any product that customers don't buy making money. That said, when you are designing, all leaders think that their product and hope that their product's going to make money, and they have very strong point of view. And our job as designers is to actually ensure that we are communicating to them the impact our designs will have on the business. Okay, so Lee, you are documenting assumptions is actually great, because then you know what are truly assumptions. And when you're validating assumptions, no, there is no confirmation bias, because you are actually testing it with customers, right? So the reason for validating is to get past your confirmation bias. So I think when I say assumptions, it is you always have the basis for your design is an assumption. So I don't know how you can design without making an assumption. If anyone else is disagreeing with me, please feel free to share your point of view, because the minute you sort of say, okay, I am going to assume that my customer is going to want to enter their name and their date of birth and their social security number and their address in that order, that's an assumption right there. It may be sometimes based on evidence, sometimes it's not based on evidence, right? I hope that makes sense. The key is to make sure that you are validating or invalidating your assumptions. You don't want your own assumptions to be the basis for your final solution, because then it's not going to work. You need to get customer feedback to be able to validate or invalidate them. If it's validated, you know it is the right solution, if it is, or the solution that works to solve that problem. If it's invalidated, then you go and you make changes to make sure that the solution works. Okay, great. Anything else? Otherwise, we can proceed. I'm doing a time check. Okay.
Grace, do you want to make the group picture now?
Yeah, for sure. Feel free to turn your camera if we want to do a group photo. I'll count down a few seconds, but if you learned something new today, feel free to definitely share it on social media. Tag Design Buddies, tag Kavita, tag General Assembly. We'll always be sharing stories over at Design Buddies and retweeting stuff on Twitter as well. I'm gonna count down. If you want to be in our group photo, definitely turn on your camera. We also have some Design Buddies Zoom backgrounds. If you want to download them, I will drop them in the chat again, so y'all can pick one from our Google folder. If y'all want to turn on your camera. All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Still see people turning on the camera. I'll give it like 3 more seconds. Meanwhile, feel free to drop your takeaways so far in this chat as well. 3. We have another section for Q&A later on as well. So make sure to stay for that. 3, 2, 1, smile. Feel free to like bring your pets or anything. I have this little bear here that I always bring. If you want, I will have my pet. Actually, else I can't do it at the same time. All right, 1, 2, 3. Say full. All right, thank you. Yeah, we can continue on with the presentation. We're at 6:30, right? To stop
Yes,
okay, cool.
I'm almost done. So
Oh yeah, no worries. Take your time.
all right, let's share. This was the last of our exercises. So okay. All right, so let's move to the next one, which is measure. And I think everyone had a lot of questions about this, and I'm going to sort of whittle it down to some simple things for you here. So what does understanding business metrics even mean, right? And I'm going to talk to that, but I think the thing is, why do you need to understand them? Because it allows you to measure the right thing at the right time and ensure your solutions achieve the desired outcomes, right? Because design is about trade-offs, and every decision has financial impact. The end goal is to be able to sell products, be it cars, subscriptions, or anything that your company or client produces. And sometimes along with that, they have other measurable metrics. It's like, hey, are we getting newsletter signups? Are we building brand awareness? And so whatever the goals are, we need to understand that, because to achieve it requires creating value for the customer. And if you are solving for brand awareness, you have a different solution where you want to showcase the brand, as opposed to if you're solving for newsletter signups, where you want to have showcase the content and have easy to sign up for. Either way, essentially we all, which is the business and design, want the same thing. We are just using a different criteria or metrics to evaluate success. And it's our job as designers to understand how what we want to achieve for a customer connects with what the business would like to achieve, and ensure we are measuring it and socializing it, right? So so there's 3 things that, measuring the right thing, clearly communicating the financial trade-offs, and framing the value of our work in business terms. So let's start with the first one. So learn and understand basic financial terminology. And I have a little quiz for us in the next section, but you don't have to become a business pro. But there are some terms that you need to learn and understand, because that allows you to be able to communicate for impact, what you've designed, what you saw, your solution, and how it has impacted the business. The other is, identifying the key business metrics for your project. And the third one is determining the right design metric that will help you measure effectiveness. And the thing to understand here is the business metrics don't change, right? The business metric is we need to generate revenue, or we need to increase revenue, or we need to acquire more customers. But design metrics change depending on where we are in the journey. And very often what happens is that business people start measuring the wrong thing at the, wrong metric at the wrong time. Let me put it that way. And here's an example what I mean by that. I'm sure when you are generating concepts, you may have been asked, or may not, but this is pretty common. How much revenue will this generate? How many customers can we acquire? Do we know what we can price it at? And you are still in the conceptual stage, and you really don't know even if this is truly a solution that people will use. And so I think the thing to keep in mind is when you are starting out, you have to understand the customer and the problem. And at that time, all you want to do is measure if you have the right customer and you understand their problem. Once you've done that, you brainstorm, you generate a solution, and then you validate whether your solution is at actually solving the problem or addressing the need for that customer. And that's when you measure engagement and satisfaction. Once you have validated that you indeed have the right solution, sorry.
Kavita, actually, your screen is not shared. I'm not sure if you meant to share your screen.
I did share it, did it not?
No, no.
That's odd. Can you guys see it now?
Yeah, we can see.
Yes, you can see it. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for pointing out. Once I share in Zoom, it just goes back all the way. Okay. So going back, so and then once you've identified the customer need and once you validated that your solution is indeed addressing the need for that customer, then you go into product market fit and you go, okay, now that we know, we believe that our solution and we have evidence and data is meeting a need, how many people are there in the world that will, when I say in the world, in the market, that will use this solution? And that is when you measure conversion. And finally, once you start measuring conversion, you start scaling and you go into financials, right? And financials is when you go, okay, we know we're getting customers. Now, how much money are we making? And what happens is you are, when you're in the first early phase of trying to, in discovery, where you are trying to understand the customer and the problem, you get asked, how much money will this make? And so the answer there is that you want to pause and say, right now, I don't even know if we have the right customer and the problem. Once we've understood and validated we have the right customer and identified the problem, then we will validate the solution, then product market fit, and then how much money it'll make. I want to just share with you a story of an organization that wanted to play in it was a healthcare organization that wanted to play in the digital space, and they decided to create an app. And they spent a lot of money creating this app, and all they had was about 5 or 6 customers, because nobody asked the question whether there was indeed a customer who had a problem and this solution would meet their need. So that's why the key is to make sure you are not measuring whether this will make money too early. Yeah. The other one is, if you know what you're measuring, it allows you to clearly communicate the financial trade-offs for our design decision. So I'm going to share with you the scenario. One, car dealers wanted only this was a solution, a tool that allows people to decide and identify the car they want, and it allows dealers to showcase their vehicles. So what the car dealers wanted was only their vehicle to display when a customer entered their criteria. So if I go, I want a sedan, a 4-door, a mid-size sedan with X horsepower, a V2 engine, whatever, right? I entered, and then I want a red color. It would show one vehicle. That's what the car dealer wanted. The business also wanted to sell that one premier placement to a car dealer because it would command a higher price. But customers wanted to feel confident that the tool was showing the best option for them. So on the right, which design would you propose and how would you communicate the financial trade-off here? the one, to the right is one car, which is what the dealer wanted. The one in the next to it, to the left of it, is 4 cars, which is not what the dealer wanted. And the team decided to go with the 4-car option. And even though the 1-car option would make more money by selling it at a higher price, the way the team was able to justify that the trade-off they were making was that they showed both these designs to customers, and all the customers, which are car buyers, like the 4-car option only because they felt like they wanted to compare. They wanted the comparing helped them understand the differences, and they and feel more confident with whatever choice they went with. And so the team went ahead with the 4-car option by saying the trade-off would be that, yes, while the 1-car option will help the dealer, it will help us make more money by selling to dealers immediately. If no customer uses the website, they're not going to be making any money. So they were able to sell the 4-car placement for a lower price, but increase traffic. So that offset the gap in revenue in terms of the pricing. And so that's how, your design, if you understand the metrics, you can help justify the trade-offs, financial trade-offs your design is making, and also be an advocate for the customer. I'm going to skip this in the interest of time, and let's go into speak the language. Now, what does that even mean? It's a very glib statement, and I know you've heard this a lot. But the key here is, the reason for that is connecting your designs to business outcomes. It allows you to really sort of tie in the terminology, not just terminology, understanding what it means to justify your design rationale, right? And going back to the first example where and I'll share this with you in terms of what were the design we were focusing on, what's the strategy, and what goal it aligns to. So here, going back to the example I shared, if you remember, it was about the payment solution to allow law firms to easily process credit cards. And there were 3 areas we focused on: easy to onboard, great first use experience, and easy to process credit card payments, right? And so the team decided on their metrics. So 70% onboarded in 5 clicks, 60% successfully set up in 10 minutes or less and mentioned it was a great experience, and 85 processed credit cards successfully in 5 minutes. So if you identify your metrics and you make sure you are measuring your designs, then that allows you to connect those metrics and what you learn to your strategy, right? Because if you're onboarding people and they are successfully setting up, you are going to increase the number of customers, and that will allow you to increase transactions. And then what that leads to is your goal or success, which is the sole payment processing solution for our customers. Right. Okay, so here's a quick quiz for everybody. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of read it out, and you guys type your understanding, and no peeking or looking it up on your phone or your computers. Is type in what your understanding is of these business terms. Ready? So B2B and B2C. DTC. ARPU. Okay. How many of you got business to business for B2B and business to consumer for B2C? Gabrielle, I need your help.
Oh, sorry. I see mostly, so I see a couple of business to business, but then I see kind of business to business slash a customer. There are a couple of responses like that, so practically both of these. Then there is direct to customer. Yes, so there are various responses.
Okay.
Do you need me to count them?
That's true. No, that's fine. ARPU. I'm sure you hear that a lot. So ARPU is average revenue per user.
We didn't have any answer for that. So.
Okay, that's a tough one. And I'm going to sort of cherry pick a few and tell you why they're important and how to use them. Churn. I'm sure you've heard there's a lot of churn. No?
No.
Okay, churn is about users leaving your platform or your solution or stop using it, right? This happens typically with a lot of these portals and stuff where you have to create an account, people will create an account and then not use it, especially e-commerce platforms. I'm sure you guys have accounts in different shopping sites, which you probably used once, but have not used again. And so that's called churn. So you're part of the churn when you stopped using it. And why is that important for you when your business person comes to you and says, we have to cut down on the churn? What you need to do is understand why people are just creating an account and not coming back, and create a design to address that.
We actually had here like a response from Hong, rate at which customers are lost. She does it.
Yes, totally. All right. Excellent. Awesome. Okay, CAC, CAC. It's actually called CAC. And that's the, go ahead.
Customer acquisition cost.
Absolutely. And why is that important? Because you want to keep your customer acquisition costs low. And so the business tries to understand, by determining that, they try to understand two things: whom they can target so that they're, whichever segment has lower acquisition costs, they want to target them. And so your goal is then to understand who they are and design for them. Or the other is, how can we keep the cost down to target a certain segment? And again, as a designer, what you want to do is you want to design for ensuring that the customer is easily onboarded, right? And can be acquired. Retention. Conversion, acquisition, retention. Okay, this is, so sorry, go ahead.
No, so far no. Oh, we just got first answer from David. People coming from one app to another.
Yeah, and I think here's the trick. Very often, and this happens a lot, the business person says, our goal is conversion. Okay, conversion could mean one of two things, right? Are you looking to acquire new customers, which is acquisition? Or are you looking to retain existing customers, which means that you want them to buy more products or use more or stay longer on using your solution? And those two are very different design solutions. And that's why when someone walks into the room and says our goal is conversion, it's always good to clarify, whom are we targeting? Because if you're designing for new customers, it's a different solution as opposed to if you're designing for existing customers, where you want to say, they have an account with you, but you want to automate things for them. That would be retention. Acquisition, you would make things easier for them to get onboarded. Engagement.
Okay, we got some responses. engagement, taking an action on the apps that's from home. Grace, people who are participating, and David, how people feel engaging with your product.
Yes. And I think that, so you'll hearing engagement, you'll hear, right? We need to increase engagement. And so it's measured by a variety or combination of activities. If you are, downloads, clicks, shares, right? Those kind of things. And so when they say we need to increase engagement, that's what we need to design for, right? Ensuring people are downloading the app, or if it's an app, ensuring people are clicking on, on the site or staying longer, right? And consuming your content or using your tools. And the same thing is with CS or CSAT, which is customer satisfaction, which is how satisfied is a customer with something. This is often used in surveys, but there are other ways also in terms of based on just their behavior. Then ROI. And I think most of you know that, but what is in the business context, it is a simple calculation that is used to determine that the expected return of a project in comparison to the cost, right? It's typically shown as a percentage. And so it's basically to evaluate whether it's worthwhile for a business to pursue it, right? So it's
you had many correct answers for that.
Okay. And the key is that because business is very particular about that, and this ROI is more not so much for your design, but when you get into resourcing, you want, that's where ROI is. When you're part of you're a design manager or you run a design team, ROI is important, right? Then LTV, that's lifetime value, which means how long a customer remains using your products or service. And if you have multiple products or offerings, you want to keep them and make them use and ensure that they're using the entire suite of your products. And that is the total worth to a business of a customer over the whole period of their relationship with your product, your service, or even your brand, right? So for Procter and Gamble, for example, the lifetime value they calculate based on all their their skincare products. So the lifetime value is if their customers are using the entire line of their skincare products, right? Net income and gross profit. So net income is a company's profit after all its expenses have been deducted from revenues. And gross profit refers to a company's profits earned after subtracting the costs of producing and distributing its products. And you will hear that and P&L, right? Or a lot, or income statement. And the P&L is a financial statement that summarizes a business's income and expenses during a given period of time. Balance sheet. It's an important financial statement that communicates an organization's worth or book value, as they call it. It includes the assets, liabilities, and shareholders' equity for a given reporting period. Cash flow, I'm sure you've heard of that. It's the net balance of cash. And there's 3 categories of cash flow: operating cash flow, investing cash flow, and financing cash flow. Then there's OPEX and CAPEX. And this is important, and that's because operating expense is an expense required for the day-to-day functioning of a business, and a capital expense is an expense a business incurs to create a benefit in the future. A lot of work that design does, there is some that falls into OPEX, but a lot of it falls into CAPEX. And what happens is sometimes people don't understand that, and you may not get approval because operating expenses are usually things that you try to keep them down. And so they bucket a lot of the work we do in OPEX category, whereas some of it can actually be treated as a capital expense. And so to understand that and get approval, you want to be very clear what you're doing is, whether it is part of an expense acquired for the day-to-day functioning, or is it a new feature, right? To create a benefit in the future. So a new fee. So those are things that will help you actually get resources and approval. TAM, SAM, and SOM. These are my favorite. Do we have any answers?
Not yet. Oh, we have total addressable market.
Okay, so TAM is total available market. It's the total market demand for a product or service. SAM is serviceable available market. It's the segment of the total market that your products and service, which is within your geographical reach. And SOM is serviceable obtainable market, is the portion, because you really cannot get. So if you have people, you're making hats for square heads. I'm going to use this example. So TAM is all the square heads in the world. SAM is square heads within the US, if I'm in the US. And SOM is the portion that you can capture. You're not going to be able to get all the square heads, right? They're not going to be buying your hats, all of them. So SOM is your serviceable obtainable market. And why is that important? It is important to understand what these three are, because that allows us to identify the customer profile or persona that we want to design for, which is typically to start with the SOM. And I think that's it. So in conclusion, just a few things. Why, I'm going to just reiterate what I started with, is understanding business elevates the role of design, and it allows us to move from being that tactical player where, it's like, okay, here's the requirements, go design, to really becoming a strategic partner, because we're able to establish, how our design will impact business health positively. So here's a screen that will increase registrations by 100% because we want to easily onboard people and acquire new customers. And by doing so, you demonstrate that you are accountable to the business and you're gaining their trust because they see value in having you on their team. And once they see value in having you on their team, you get a lot of creative freedom and you are able to lead change. So empathy, collaborate, measure, communicate. I think those are the 4 steps that if you sort of take to heart, you are going to be on your way to driving business impact. And I am going to stop.
Kavita, we have actually very good question. If there is a cheat sheet for the quiz for the answers. So if you have any list of the correct answers for the actual quiz.
Definitely sort of, yes. So Grace, I definitely can do that. Actually, you know what? I'll send you the links. Hang on, let me just see if I can find the links to, let me.
And some people were asking if the slides will be shared, because we will be sharing out the recording. It will be uploaded on Design Buddies YouTube channel, and I can send the link to the channel via email. But some people were asking if you are willing to share your slide deck.
See, I will have to scrub it because I have some proprietary stuff there, which I don't know if I can share publicly. I'll see if I can do that, and I'll send it to Grace. And
yeah, we can share it on Discord and everything too. So make sure you join Design Buddies Discord to be the first to find out.
Okay, and just give me a second. I'm trying to find the source URL so I can actually paste it for you guys. So here's one site, you guys, for the terms, and there is one more. I will look, let me find it. I put it in chat, the answers. Right. Anything else? Any other questions? Hopefully you guys found this useful. I know I covered a lot, so um, I'm sure it can be a little overwhelming, but I hope it's useful.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm sure like I feel like for me when I was starting out in design not too long ago, I was so focused on just like most of the user experience, but not really able to sell my designs well to like stakeholders, or even like when I was like interviewing, even to like hiring managers, I would get asked during interviews like, how would you measure success? How does this like increase revenue for the business? How does this acquire more customers? So I definitely think a lot of things, I feel like business acumen and then like business knowledge, especially as a UX or product designer, or even graphic designer, is it can make you stand out as a candidate as well. And also when you work like in industry, it'll help you sell your designs to leadership and create buy-in as well. So I definitely think the content that you mentioned that you presented today is super, super important as like even aspiring or current designers as well. So thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the things to keep in mind is that as designers, we have two roles, right? To Grace's point, you are selling your design, you're also selling the profession of design
Yeah.
because of everything I mentioned. And that means that you need to always advocate for not just your solution, but the profession. And the way to do that is in a way that people can relate to. And what does business relate to? They relate to numbers, they relate to, and they want to meet their goals. So if you can help them, that's great. Some of my good friends and relationships I've developed have been with business people. And because and so I would say just sort of let them mentor you, buddy, let them become your buddies, and you will learn a lot.
Yeah, always just I always like to talk with like PMs, like product managers and company, and seeing just like what's the best way to like work with designers, or like what are expectations, and do some like expectation setting, things like that too. It's always really interesting, and reading more about business and everything too, and attending webinars like this. Cool. Any questions from our buddies? Do you have any quick questions? If you would rather raise your hand, go on camera, go on stage and ask, feel free to do so as well. If you raise your hand, we'll unmute you. Hi, Gabrielle. I know we're going a bit over time. Is there anything else we would like to cover?
No, it's all for me, from me. So I will be sending out actually follow-up email from US West at ga.co. So keep an eye on that. I will try to include there some notes, all these amazing links to design buddies. I will include there the link to recording and everything. But you can join Discord and maybe we'll receive it there even sooner. So just keep an eye on the resources if you wanna rewatch this or practically learn all these amazing terms. And thank you, Kavita. You were fantastic as always.
Yeah, and also Cindy asked in the chat, are any favorite business books you recommend for beginners looking to learn more, or any other resources in general?
And that is interesting. For I think understanding business, there is a good. Envision has some really good resources. They have a podcast where they bring in a lot of designers and business people in terms of how do you connect UX with business. So I would start there. I don't know if there's, on the top of my head, I can't think of any business book that which is in itself a need, I think, that is targeted towards UX designers, but I think their Envision has a good resource.
Yeah, I actually read this one before. It's called Business Thinking for Designers on Envision. I just linked it in the chat. I also personally like Lean Startup. It's not really like design specific, but if you want to like have like think of how your designs will create impact or like find product market fit, that's like a good book to read too.
That's true. That focuses more on experimentation, but yes, absolutely.
Perfect. If we don't have any further questions, I will be slowly hitting the end. Grace, do you want to add anything? Kavita, anyone?
Yeah, just thank you so much, everyone. And if y'all found something insightful, definitely feel free to follow all of us and share your takeaways on social media and tag all of us as too. We would love to see it. And feel free to continue the conversation on Design Buddies and hop into our community.
Thank you all.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night or evening.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for having me, and hopefully you find some of it actionable and are going to be using it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.